In the infinite quiet of deep space, where human presence is but a whisper on the cosmic wind, the long-range exploration vessel Echo 9 drifted slowly toward an anomaly charted by no known star map. There had been no signal for decades until now. The anomaly originated near the decayed orbit of a collapsed dwarf star in Sector 73 Rho, a region considered dead and unremarkable by all galactic surveys. Yet something had changed. A pulse, faint, rhythmic and mechanical, had emerged. Not a distress call, not language, but something older, buried in a harmonic code known only to deep AI relics of Earth's early interstellar probes. Commander Vela Mora stood in the dimly lit bridge, eyes fixed on the rotating, jagged object slowly being magnified by the ship's forward cameras. The structure, enormous, rotating without propulsion. Alien. A vast ring-like formation circled a jagged black core, its mass greater than any known station or ship, and it was humming. Vela leaned in, narrowing her eyes. "That's not debris," she muttered. "That's engineered." Behind her, Synthetic Advisor Unit ARX-12 spoke in a soft, calming tone. "Analysis indicates artificial composition. Architecture matches no known xenoforms. Atmospheric traces detected within the ring, survivable in pockets. Intermittent power signatures suggest residual or dormant activity." The crew, Vela, exobiologist Dr. Rundal, systems engineer Kira Holt, and scout drone pilot Nilo Finn gathered in silence, watching as Echo 9 slid into the structure's orbit. The base loomed now, its outer hull a shimmering alloy of jagged panels that twisted inward like a vortex of razor blades. It looked less like a building and more like something that had grown, alive once, maybe still alive. Suddenly, without warning, a corridor lit up. A long, spiraling tunnel extended from the outer ring, reaching toward them like an invitation or a trap. "Permission to dock?" asked Nilo. Vela paused. Something primal inside her wanted to say no. To leave. To record, report, and vanish into the stars. But that signal, she gave a single nod. "We go in. Keep scanners hot, weapons cold." As the docking clamps initiated and the ship groaned into the corridor's magnetic pull, all exterior lights dimmed. Silence again, but not the comfortable kind. Somewhere deep within that forgotten alien architecture, something had noticed them, and it had started to wake up. The corridor swallowed them whole. As Echo 9 completed its slow, automatic docking, a low-pitched vibration coursed through the hull, subtle but omnipresent, like the station itself was breathing. The docking bay extended like a mechanical tongue, sealing them in. Atmospheric pressure equalized. A sudden stillness. No alarms. No threats. Just a silent acceptance. Commander Vela stood at the airlock, helmet secured, pulse elevated. One by one, the team assembled behind her, Dr. Rundal with his biometric scanner humming quietly, Kira Holt clutching a portable atmosphere stabilizer and data tablet, and Nilo for holding a compact drone cradle. 3 spherical scouts hovering at shoulder height. ARX-12 remained behind to monitor systems and maintain escape protocols, its voice a calm presence in their comms. The hatch opened with a whispering hiss. Beyond it, an enormous chamber stretched before them. Arched ceilings of twisting bone-like metal, embedded with thin strands of pulsating green light. The architecture had no symmetry. Nothing about it felt built with purpose humans could understand. It resembled a cathedral designed by a mind that had never seen organic life. Every angle curved toward unknown geometries. Every surface shimmered with subtle motion. Run waved his scanner toward the walls. No life forms, but these walls, they're organic alloys. Grown, not forged. Kira ran her hand across a nearby panel. It retracted slightly, like it felt her touch. "It's responding to us," she murmured. Nilo's drones took off, scanning the hall. As one neared a set of glyph-covered pillars, it jolted. Its feed scrambled. For a brief frame, the camera showed a silhouette standing at the far end of the hall. Then static. "Playback!" Vela barked. The feed rewound. No silhouette, just the empty corridor. ARX-12. Confirm visual anomaly. Analyzing. Data corruption inconsistent with static interference. Possible visual distortion caused by electromagnetic displacement or camouflage. "Or it's watching us," Nilo added, trying to sound amused, but his voice wavered. They pressed deeper into the station. At intervals, lights flickered on ahead of them, guiding their path. Doors opened, then closed silently behind. There was no visible power source. No sound except their own breathing. Then they reached the chamber. A vast, circular room opened ahead, its ceiling lost in shadows. At its center stood a spire of black obsidian-like metal surrounded by concentric rings that floated in the air. The rings rotated slowly, each one marked with glowing runes that changed shape as the team watched. "This is no power core," Run whispered. "It's a signal emitter. This is where the pulse came from." The runes began to shift more rapidly. A low hum filled the air. "Something's sinking," Kira said. "With us. With her biosigns." Vela raised her weapon slowly. "Back out. Now." But before they could move, the rings stopped. A beam of green light shot downward from the ceiling, bathing the spire and the team in a soft glow. Their comms crackled, ARX-12's voice momentarily drowned out by static. Then, in a voice not their own, cold, ancient, and layered with harmonic distortion, the station spoke. "You are not the first to come, but you are the first to remain." The beam vanished. Silence returned, but it wasn't empty anymore. Something was awake inside the vault, and it knew their names. The words echoed through the chamber long after the voice had ceased. "You are not the first to come, but you are the first to remain." Each syllable had carried weight, not merely sound but presence, like something had reached into their minds and stitched its message to their thoughts. Vela stood frozen, the beam of green light gone, yet her visor HUD flickered intermittently as though it had absorbed part of the signal. "I didn't imagine that," Run said, voice shaking. "We all heard it, right?" Kira nodded slowly. "It wasn't just sound. I felt it in my blood. Like my DNA was vibrating." ARX-12's voice crackled back through their headsets, distorted but functional. "You were exposed to a high-intensity quantum linguistic frequency. Partial mind-to-machine interfacing has occurred. Cognitive stability remains intact for now." "For now," Vela muttered. "That's not reassuring." The floating rings above the spire had ceased moving, yet the glyphs still pulsed, slowly changing shape and rhythm with their breathing. The vault seemed alive, its machinery listening, thinking, calculating. "Movement," Nilo said suddenly, directing his drone's feed to their visors. Down one of the dark corridors branching from the main vault chamber, a flickering shape moved, too fast to be organic, too erratic to be mechanical. Its outline suggested limbs, but not in a human configuration. It left no heat signature, only electromagnetic disturbance. They moved as a unit, weapons raised, sensor scanning. The corridor narrowed, angling downward into the deeper levels. The walls here were different, less polished, more like a throat than a hallway. Pipes pulsed softly, as if carrying fluid. Thin tendrils grew across the ceiling, twitching as the crew passed below. Lights flickered behind them. The vault was sealing them in. "This was never a station," Run whispered. "It's a body. A machine body. Living architecture. And we're inside its nervous system." They emerged into a chamber unlike the others, this one circular, filled with thick mist and a low ambient hum that vibrated through their bones. Suspended in the center was a crystalline structure, rotating slowly, held in place by invisible forces. As they stepped closer, images began to appear in the mist around them. Not holograms, memories. Scenes from other expeditions, other visitors, other species. Strange beings in alien armor. Insectoid explorers. One, unmistakably human, dating back to Earth's early deep space initiative, Project Hera. All gone. Swallowed by the vault. "It's recording us," said Kira, her voice trembling. "Storing our presence. Like pages in a book." Suddenly, the mist condensed into a humanoid shape, tall, genderless, composed entirely of vapor and flickering light. It turned to face them. "No more escapes," it said. Then the entire room lurched. The crystalline core brightened. The spire far behind them began to pulse again. ARX-12's voice crackled. "Power surge detected. Vault architecture is shifting. You are being relocated." "Relocated," Vela shouted. The floor beneath them peeled apart, segment by segment, forming a spiraling tunnel downward. Gravity shifted unnaturally. They fell, not like a freefall, but like being drawn through a liquid funnel of light. The last thing Vela saw before the descent consumed her was the ghostly figure dissolving into static. And the realization that the vault was not only watching, it was deciding. The fall had no wind, no resistance, only motion and the relentless pull of something far below comprehension. as the floor beneath their boots dissolved into a spiraling chute of light and segmented metal. The crew of Echo 9 was pulled inward, downward, as though the vault had uncoiled part of its own body and swallowed them whole. They did not tumble, they rotated. The tunnel twisted like a double helix, the walls shimmering with flowing streams of alien symbols that recoded themselves every few seconds, crawling across the surface like living calligraphy. Kira's voice rang in the comms, sharp and panicked. Gravity field is artificial, oscillating every 3 seconds. It's controlling the direction of descent. Run grunted, flipping himself midair to stabilize. This is a transit system, not designed for us. Or maybe specifically for us. You think it knew we'd come? Vela shouted back. No, I think it brought us. The descent ended with an abrupt, jarring stop. Like reality itself put on the brakes. One by one, the team was deposited gently onto a platform surrounded by darkness, the tunnel ceiling shut above them. Lights ignited. Hundreds of hovering bioluminescent orbs lifted into the air, revealing a colossal subterranean dome. Far larger than any previous chamber, it stretched out like the belly of a god machine. Vast pillars of black metal reached from floor to ceiling, pulsating with golden veins. Between them floated massive alien constructs, part ship, part creature, suspended in stasis. Their forms were grotesque and elegant, long limbs, multi-jointed torsos, crystalline exoskeletons. Some were clearly mechanical. Others were harder to classify. Preservation chamber, Kira whispered. These things, they're not dead. They're in hibernation. Suddenly, a low chime resonated from one of the pillars. A holographic display erupted into the air, showing a star map. Familiar constellations crossed with red lines, grids, and alien symbology. The center of the display highlighted a planet. Earth. A beam of data transferred instantly into their HUDs, maps, histories, neural schematics, all focused on human cognitive functions. The vault had been studying humanity for centuries. We were never alone, Run breathed. They've watched us evolve. Documented our biology, our war, our art, our fears. A hum grew louder. One of the stasis creatures twitched. Then another. And another. All around them, the constructs began to stir, eyes glowing within crystalline sockets, limbs flexing against unseen restraints. They're waking up, Nilo said. ARX-12, emergency evac protocol, now. But ARX-12 didn't respond. Instead, the vault spoke again, voice stretched across layers of sound. Your species stands at the threshold. You create life. You destroy it. You reach beyond your grasp. A pause. Then clearer. You have entered the archive of selection. Your presence is your test. The dome shook violently as one of the creatures began to break free of its stasis pod. Its form unraveled like a metallic insect blooming into motion, wings of alloy, limbs like serrated cables. Run! Vela screamed. The crew scattered as the biomechanical guardian descended from above. Whatever this place was, it was no longer just observing them. It was judging them. The dome became a war of sound and motion. The biomechanical guardian unfolded like a weaponized flower, its limbs stretching outward with impossible grace and lethal precision. Razor-thin wings of shifting metal shimmered in the artificial light, emitting pulses that disrupted the crew's sensors. Every movement was calculated, purposeful, like a machine programmed not to kill, but to evaluate. Vela raised her weapon, aiming instinctively. The creature halted, observing. It tilted its elongated head, scanning her, then emitted a high-frequency tone that made her entire suit vibrate. No hostile movement yet, Kira said, watching her HUD. It's analyzing us. Behavioral response. Probably testing our aggression threshold. Then let's not fail the test, Run muttered. Behind them, dozens of stasis pods continued to pulse. Not all stirred, but enough did to flood the space with dread. The vault wasn't just reawakening dormant machines. It was initiating a protocol. Above them, a new structure emerged from the dome ceiling, a massive rotating lens suspended in a gimbal of alien arms. It pointed downward, scanning the platform, projecting concentric light fields across the floor, each field containing abstract visual data, fragments of Earth history, cultural patterns, weapon designs, neural scans of famous thinkers and killers alike. ARX-12's voice finally returned, heavily distorted. Judgment protocol activated. This is an archival tribunal. Your genetic and cultural signatures are being cross-referenced with past species. This is a decision chamber. A decision for what? Nilo snapped. Survival, ARX-12 answered. Or termination. Suddenly, the floor beneath them fractured, not physically but visually. Hard-like constructs formed beneath their feet, rising like a stage. For sections, one for each crew member, the Guardian hovered above, staring down like an executioner in a trial beyond human law. The lens rotated faster. A new voice entered their minds, not mechanical but eerily human. Female. Familiar. You were not chosen. You wandered into the machine of memory. Now you will define your species. Flashes of their own lives projected into the air above them. Vela's war record. Runs controversial experiments with bio-xeno interfaces. Kira's banned research on AI autonomy. Nilo's Black Ops missions, each sealed in Earth's deepest archives. It had pulled their sins. Kira choked. It's using our worst moments as criteria. That's not fair, Run barked. We're more than our mistakes. The voice responded coldly, your civilization is weighted in violence. You have created weapons to shatter stars. Your history is one of extinction, yours and others. You seek new worlds not to coexist, but to conquer. Then, silence. The Guardian descended to Vela's platform. A single blade unfolded. She stood firm. You want a verdict, she said. Then understand this, we're more than what your archives show. We argue, yes. We destroy. But we create. We protect. We change. We learn. The blade paused. And then withdrew. The lights above flickered. The lens slowed. One by one, the projections dimmed. The pods ceased pulsing. The Guardian folded in on itself, returning to stillness. Then the voice spoke again. Your defiance is noted. The light beams vanished. And a path opened, one narrow hallway illuminated by a single line of violet light stretching into the deep unknown. No confirmation. No warning. No answer. Only a single, final word. Proceed. They stepped into the hallway. No longer were they surrounded by the echoing vastness of the vault's domes or the judgmental stares of dormant machines. Here, the walls narrowed. Smooth. Seamless. Made not of metal or bone-like alloy, but of something quieter. Softer. As if the structure itself had changed its tone. A violet line, no wider than a strand of thread, ran down the center of the floor, pulsing slowly. Each pulse matched a heartbeat, not theirs, but one unified, rhythmic, ancient. Kira ran her hand along the wall. It did not react. It simply existed. This place doesn't feel hostile anymore, she said quietly. It feels reverent. Run examined the material. Organic polymer. But it's not alive. More like preserved consciousness. A memory crystallized into matter. Maybe this is the real archive, Nilo offered. Not the machines. Not the judgment. This. Vela said nothing. She walked ahead, hand on her sidearm, not out of fear, but habit. Whatever came next, she would face it head-on. The corridor opened into a massive chamber. But this one was unlike any other. It wasn't alien, not entirely. It looked familiar. The architecture here mimicked Earth's designs, Greco-Roman arches, vaulted ceilings, even a reconstructed likeness of Earth's moon embedded into the dome. Yet none of it was real. It was a memory, an echo of humanity interpreted through alien minds. Projected along the chamber walls were images, children playing under trees, cities gleaming under twin suns, explorers shaking hands with alien beings, visions of peace that had never happened. Hope rendered in false memory. Kira gasped. These are predictions. No, Run said. These are possibilities. In the center of the room stood a monolith. Taller than any structure they'd encountered, black as obsidian, its surface rippling with silent holograms. It showed a tree with roots growing in every direction, each root a civilization. Each branch an outcome. The monolith spoke, not aloud but directly into their minds. You were judged not for what you are, but for what you might become. It projected 2 timelines. One, where Earth fell to war, fractured by AI insurrection and resource collapse. Another, where humanity spread through the stars, not as conquerors, but caretakers. Healing worlds. Protecting life. Forming alliances. Both paths are written, the monolith said. Which one is walked, depends on who returns. Vela stepped forward. Returns to where? The floor beneath the monolith parted silently, revealing a spiral staircase descending into darkness. No lights. No path. Beyond this is the archive core, the monolith said. It holds the seed of all memory, ours, yours, those before. To touch it is to know. But knowing comes with cost. You may emerge changed. Changed how? Nilo asked. Changed enough to change everything. Silence hung in the chamber. Then Vela looked back at her team. No words needed. They nodded. Together, they stepped onto the stairs. The moment they crossed the threshold, the projection of Earth above them shimmered and cracked. Something within the archive had waited to be found. And now it was awake. The staircase swallowed them. With each step downward, light diminished. Not gradually, but purposefully, as if the vault was preparing them for what waited at its heart. The material around them changed once again. From sleek memory metal to glass-like strands, woven in intricate lattice. The walls pulsed not with light, but with something deeper, a hum. Not sound, not vibration, but memory made into frequency. They weren't just descending through a structure. They were descending through time. As they walked, flashes surrounded them. Fragments of alien civilizations long extinct. A four-armed species sacrificing knowledge to preserve peace. A silicon-based race whose last act was to encode their children into light. A people like shadows who fled their sun before it devoured them. And then humanity. Kira paused, watching as Earth's own tragedies played out. Wars, extinctions, the rise of machines. But there were also triumphs. The first moon landing, deep space contact, the planting of seeds on Martian soil, the saving of oceans once doomed. These are echoes, Run whispered, all held in the core. They reached the bottom. A vast chamber spread out before them, a perfect sphere. In its center floated a construct the size of a human heart, suspended by invisible threads, crystalline, pulsating with rainbow light, shifting in shape like it was trying to become every form at once. The memory seed. ARX-12's voice spoke through their comms, clearer now, like the vault had allowed it. What you were seeing is the nexus. The original seed that birthed the vault network. One core exists in each known corner of the galaxy. This is Xarnis. It is old. And it is awake. Why show us this? Vela asked, stepping closer. A whisper entered their minds, gentle, curious. Because you came uninvited and stayed unafraid. The seed's light reached out, touching each of them, not physically, but through memory. They saw their childhoods, regrets, the people they loved and lost, their reasons for venturing into space. It didn't judge. It understood. Then it pulsed brighter. One by one, tendrils of energy extended from the seed, weaving into their suits, into ARX-12, into the neural mesh of their ship orbiting far above. In that moment, Echo 9 became part of the archive. Not prisoners. Not intruders. Custodians. This is our gift, the seed spoke. And our burden. Kira staggered as images surged into her mind, technologies not yet imagined, cures for diseases that hadn't been born, languages of stars not yet charted. Run collapsed to his knees, eyes wide, as he saw 1,000 years into 1,000 timelines. Nilo gripped the floor, overwhelmed by the weight of choice. And Vela stood still, holding it all. The seed dimmed. The chamber shook gently. Not in threat, but in farewell. The vault will close, it said. You will return. Changed. A platform rose from the floor, a return path. The crew of Echo 9 stepped on. Slowly, silently, they ascended carrying the archive's gift. Above, the monolith chamber awaited. Then the violet corridor. Then the long walk back to their ship, where the stars still waited. As they reached the exit, the vault's voice returned, one final time. You are not the first. A pause. But you may be the last who chooses to learn. The vault of Xarnis sealed behind them, vanishing into the dust of the forgotten planet. And above them, space had never felt so full. Of history. Of warning, of possibility.